In this lesson we're going to discuss benchmark fractions, and this is still part of Unit 1, so we're still coloring purple. Benchmark fractions are fractions that you should have memorized. You'll need to know their equivalent, decimal values, and percent values. Your equivalent, decimals, and percents. Equivalent is just a fancy word for equals. So these decimals, these fractions, and these percents are all equal to each other. 1/2 is probably the most familiar to us. Decimal 0.5 and percent 50%. We say something's 50-50, it has an even chance of happening. The next ones that are also pretty familiar usually are the quarters, 1/4 and 3/4. 1/4 as a decimal, 0.25. 3/4, 0.75. So that's 25% and 75%. So this, again, quarters, we think about money, we think about quarters. Each quarter is worth 25%, so we can think money here. 25% of a dollar, that is. Okay. We don't have 2 quarters on here because 2 quarters, 2/4, simplifies to 1/2, right? 50 cents for 2 quarters, 50% of a dollar. The next two that are usually pretty familiar are 1/3 and 2/3. So 1/3 is 0.33 repeating, or 33.3 repeating percent. 2/3, 0.66 repeating, excuse me, or 66.6 repeating percent. Sometimes when you put that one in your calculator, 2/3, and you try to get a decimal, you'll see 0.6666666667. What your calculator is doing is actually rounding. So what it says, let's say for example I have 0.666666 repeating, and I want to round to the nearest hundredth. So like in our previous lesson, we're going to identify the hundredths place, which is 2, over from the decimal to the right, and we're going to look one more place to the right. That's a 6, so that's going to make this 6 round up to a 7. So this is going to be 0.67. So your calculator actually knows there's another 6 right here, and is rounding that last visible place up to a 7. Kind of interesting. All right. Next ones that are usually pretty familiar are the tenths. 1/10, 0.1, which is 10%. 2/10, we know that simplifies to 1/5, so that's over here, and we don't have to include it on the tenths chart since it reduces or simplifies. 3/10 is 0.3, or 30%. 4/10, again, that's another one that simplifies. It simplifies to 2/5. So we don't have to include that one on the tenths chart because it's actually included over here. So same thing, 5/10 simplifies to a 1/2. 6/10 simplifies to 3/5. 7/10 is 0.7, or 70%. 8/10 is going to reduce or simplify to 4/5. 9/10 is 0.9, or 90%. And 1 whole is just 1, and that's 100%. So knowing what we know now about these fifths, that makes the decimals and the percents a little bit easier. We can think about these in terms of tenths, so we can change to tenths. So for example, we knew that 2/10, right, simplified to 1/5. So 2/10 would just be 0.2, or 20%. 2/5 we said was the same as 4/10, so that's 0.4, or 40%. 3/5, 5 times 2 gives me 10, 3 times 2 gives me 6, so that would be 6/10, so 0.6, or 60%. And 4/10, 5 times 2 gives me 10, 4 times 2 gives me 8, so that would be 8/10, 0.8, or 80%. Eighths are a little bit tricky. But if you know 1/8, you can figure out the rest. So 1/8 is 0.125. Move the decimal 2 to the right, and it's 12.5%. 2/8 simplifies to 1/4, so we didn't include that on the chart. 3/8. So if I take 1/8 and add it 3 times, so 1.25 plus 1.25 plus 1.25, that gives me 0.375, or 37.5%. 4/8, same as 1/2, it simplifies down, so 5/8, that one's going to be 0.625, or 62.5%. And 7/8, so we didn't include 6/8 because that's 3/4, so 7/8 is going to be 0.825. Oh, excuse me, 875. That's a 7, 875, 0.875. There we go, 0.875, or 87.5%. So those are the fractions and decimals and percent equivalents that you should be pretty familiar with. They'll show up a lot during the course of this year. And you can always refer back to this chart if you forget for just a minute. All right, thank you and have a great day.